When we hear the term illegal drugs, most of us think of cocaine, heroin, speed, the kind of drug that's sold on dark street corners in any major city in America. Well, that's not the case with the latest drug sweeping the nation. It's being sold from Main Street to Wall Street, from high schools to the Silicon Valley. It's as popular here in the big city as it is in suburbia. And yet, it looks so innocent, this tiny pill that packs a powerful punch.
Saturday night, and it's party time anywhere in the U.S. It's a rave, an underground bash with non-stop dancing that could well go on for 48, maybe 72 hours. And yet, there's no let-up in the pulse or the energy. So much of it fueled by a tiny, colorful pill that looks like candy. It's called Ecstasy. Talk to almost anyone who's tried Ecstasy, and they'll tell you they think it's a joyride.
There's a body high. There's definitely a physical body high.
Just what is it about this pill that makes people so willing to ignore the risks? Ecstasy works on the brain, forcing nerve cells to increase their production of serotonin, the chemical responsible for the positive feelings of joy, euphoria, and elation. Users of Ecstasy say just minutes after taking the drug, they begin to feel more accepting of the world around them, happy, blissful, quite simply, ecstatic. To experience that high, users are willing to ignore the potentially damaging psychological and physical effects of ecstasy. We'll talk about that later. Today, among teenagers, ecstasy is the only drug whose use is on the rise. Millions of these pills are now pouring into the country, from California to Texas to New York. Steve Castile is a chief intelligence officer with the Drug Enforcement Administration.
1993, law enforcement seized less than 200 pills in all the United States. Last year, we seized 12 million. 6-year difference, how quickly it's come upon us.
From 200 pills to how many million?
Over 12 million last year.
And that staggering increase has created even more dangerous and deadly problems with ecstasy.
So many people are doing ecstasy, so much money being made in the trafficking of it, that there's now a huge market in copycat drugs. Drugs like paramethoxyamphetamine, PMA, known on the streets as death.
Enter DanceSafe,
I think it makes more sense for the ecstasy to be over here.
a controversial new group whose mission is to identify copycats like PMA and warn users. But the way DanceSafe accomplishes that goal has some parents and authorities up in arms. While DanceSafe is adamant about the dangers of ecstasy copycats, it refuses to condemn the use of ecstasy itself. In fact, it goes even further.
See these cards? Behind each card is just factual information.
It sets up tables at rave parties frequented by teenagers, tests their ecstasy pills, and then hands the drugs right back to the kids. Brooke Aoyang is the director of DanceSafe's chapter in the Bay Area.
I know that if we weren't here, a lot of people would either be taking bad things or, I know that what we're doing helps.
We want to keep people alive and as healthy as possible until they're ready to make their own choice to stop using.
Emmanuel Sefirios is a former ecstasy user and the founder of DanceSafe.
We are healthcare workers. We see ourselves as a public health organization, reducing drug-related harm by providing life-saving information to users.
Could that kind of information have saved the lives of 2 Illinois teenagers just a few months ago?
911 emergency? What is your emergency?
He's not breathing.
He's not breathing? How do you know about the drug, the ecstasy?
Because I know that's what he took. He told us.
Steve Lorenz, just 17 years old, was partying in an apartment just above his father's home in McHenry, Illinois, when he suddenly went into convulsions.
About 5:30 in the morning, I heard kind of like dancing or kicking, or I wasn't sure what it was, and I thought, okay, music's going to go on, typical party.
But the party had ended, and his son was dying from the copycat drug PMA.
Did he know this was PMA?
No, he was told it was ecstasy.
Just 6 days later, in nearby Naperville, a picturesque suburban community just outside Chicago, it happened again.
She was an outgoing girl, friendly to everybody.
Her name was Sarah Eichelman. a high school senior who, like so many kids her age, had started experimenting with ecstasy. She was partying at a friend's house on a Saturday night last May.
The next morning I received a call about 10 to 10 saying that Sarah had had a seizure. They took her immediately into the emergency room. I never did see her conscious again.
The all-American girl who'd been out for a night of fun was dead. She was 18.
Her body was bleeding. Her organs were shutting down. From what I understand, she didn't feel any pain.
The people at DanceSafe say if only Sarah and Steve had had their drugs tested, they might be alive today.
So it turns black, right?
It should.
And that's why the organization says it's out here to save lives.
A lot of times when we're here, people selling bunk pills won't sell. They'll leave. And sometimes dealers get mad at us, but I don't care. You know, we're not here for the dealers. We're here for
Protecting our
my
lives.
peers.
Of course, the possession of ecstasy, a dangerous and illegal substance, is a crime. Yet DanceSafe does this right out in the open. Here's how the test works. The ecstasy user hands over his or her pill for a quick analysis.
Did you get it here? Did you buy it here? Okay, I have to give it back to you.
No, I gotta scrape it first.
Oh, sorry.
Watch closely. If the pill changes color immediately to dark purple or black, then it's tested positive for the presence of ecstasy.
So it detected some real ecstasy. It detected some real ecstasy, but that doesn't mean it's pure, safe.
But no matter what these testers find, remember the pill is always handed back to the user. No one is ever told to take or not to take the drug. The partier disappears into the night, perhaps not realizing that even pure ecstasy can kill.
Now this is the ballistics laboratory.
The DEA's Steve Castile is an expert on ecstasy. Recently, he took me on a tour of the agency's drug analysis laboratory outside Washington,
Notice the colors, the shapes.
where I saw hundreds of pills that look identical to ecstasy. Put the fake pill next to the real thing, and to the human eye, there's no difference. And that's why this group DanceSafe was founded, to protect ecstasy users from the deadly copycats. It may sound like a good idea, but Steve Castile says DanceSafe is condoning the use of drugs and worse, ignoring the risk of the drug ecstasy itself. He says ecstasy is psychologically addicting, so while your mood can soar on the drug, it can also come crashing down. As the drug wears off, reality kicks in, and users feel depressed.
And then it becomes a chase. Always get the high back again. And they never really ever can get that high back that they first had.
There are also potentially fatal physical side effects. Using pure ecstasy causes the body to dehydrate, and that's why you see so many people at these raves constantly drinking water.
While on ecstasy, the body's temperature can rise dramatically to dangerous levels, and that can be a problem out here on a hot dance floor. Take too many pills, and your body's organs begin to shut down, leading to a coma. Around the world, dozens of people have died after overdosing on ecstasy.
What we can do is like make a little puncture and like kind of squeeze them out.
But that hasn't stopped DanceSafe from its self-appointed task of testing ecstasy at raves.
Even though we did this, we just want you to know that it's not pure. It doesn't mean that it's safe, and it doesn't tell you how much is in it.
The DEA says the problem is DanceSafe has no expertise to test any drug.
It's good though, huh? We can't say that it's good.
Its volunteers usually get only 1 day of training for their on-site testing, and their inexperience shows. We watched as they tested pill after pill after pill without ever changing or cleaning the razor, apparently unconcerned about possible cross-contamination. Not only that, we discovered that some of the testers are ravers and ecstasy users themselves. DanceSafe does point out that when testing pills, all of its volunteers must be sober and drug-free. But the fact is, none of these testers are licensed laboratory technicians.
The field test they do is so inconclusive. Doesn't tell you what else is in there. Doesn't tell you if it's strong ecstasy, weak ecstasy. It doesn't really even tell you if it's ecstasy.
Not so, says DanceSafe's founder.
Ecstasy releases serotonin.
He insists that the program is effective and that any drug testing is better than doing nothing. After all, he says, these partiers are going to take the drug anyway.
The drug war has been a miserable failure. We have not stopped the spread of drugs.
Just say no.
People who lived through the Nancy Reagan Just Say No years
Just say no.
have seen that. We need to try something different.
But what troubles authorities most about DanceSafe is its practice of scraping the pill and then giving it back to the partier with no warning whatsoever against the use of illegal drugs.
Sounds like and it looks like you're endorsing drug use.
Well, you know, that criticism has only come from the media and a few uneducated law enforcement officials who we haven't spoken to yet.
The testing at the raves, he says, is simply an effort to save lives. In fact, DanceSafe compares its work to needle exchange programs that try to prevent the spread of disease among IV drug users.
We see that as a good parallel. Needle exchange programs were one of the first harm reduction services to become popular. And pill testing, like needle exchange, is a service.
But where does DanceSafe get the money to conduct this operation? Well, you may be surprised to hear that much of its funding comes from some big names in, of all places, the Silicon Valley. Ecstasy supporters like Bob Wallace and Steve Simages, who have given tens of thousands of dollars to DanceSafe.
What do you say to those folks who look at DanceSafe and say, these folks, the people you're funding, sanction drug use?
Well, they don't sanction drug use. They don't encourage people to go take drugs. What they do is they say, well, if you're already going to take drugs, here's what it's going to do to you, and let's make sure you're taking the chemical that you wanted to take.
Simages is a millionaire, just 25 years old and the founder of his own internet company. He says he doesn't use ecstasy himself, but that it's the rage in the internet industry, despite all the warnings.
Some of the most powerful, successful, influential people I know are ecstasy users or have been ecstasy users in the past.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
And then there's Bob Wallace, one of the original employees at Microsoft, who also supports what DanceSafe is doing.
Mr. Wallace, you're giving thousands of dollars to this organization so that it can confirm that what these kids are taking is ecstasy.
And confirm that what they're taking sometimes is not ecstasy and in fact could be very dangerous.
And it's that message that's making DanceSafe a hit with the rave crowd.
Sounds to me like they care about kids. People are dying from things that are in ecstasy besides ecstasy. And people are dying because of misinformation and not knowing how to be safe.
I think safe maybe is the wrong word in their name. Maybe it should be dance deadly or dance dangerous.
And what about the parents of those two young victims whose lives ended so tragically, so suddenly? Well, they don't think anyone should be checking illegal drugs and then handing them back to the user.
Now, if there's an organization that wants to go there and they want to test your pills to make sure they're okay, to me, that's self-defeating. That's like saying, okay, do them.
My first sense is to think that they need to confiscate the drugs, not promote it. Looking at the drug and handing it back, it gives them the feeling that it's okay. That's not the message that should be out there. It's not okay.